Welcome to the bird's eye view down here in beautiful Arizona. I am Randy the War Duck, and welcome back to another episode. So, I want to talk about e-bikes. I saw a few articles, and I don't have one. I've looked to get more of a e-moto and not a e-bicycle, but I have yet to get one. So this is coming from a different perspective because I don't own one, but I just kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit. So let's go ahead and get into it. So we got this article from Electric, and it says, if you think electric bikes are bad, there's a much bigger menace hitting our roads. And, that's the title. Okay, no big deal. And so what they talk about is lawmakers making laws for e-bikes and parents demanding bans. So let's just kind of go through this. So electric bikes are a menace. They go almost as fast as cars. If the car is parking, they're whisper quiet, which makes them impossible to hear over the podcast playing in your headphones. And worst of all, they're increasingly ridden by teenagers. So that's him being sarcastic. This guy is on the e-bike side, so take that statement as it comes. So he goes on and says, by now we've all seen headlines. Cities are cracking down. Lawmakers are holding emergency hearings. Parents are demanding bans. Oh, my kid's on an e-bike and we should ban them. Okay, first of all, control your own child, right? If you don't want your child on an e-bike, then don't buy them one. Okay, but other people's parents don't mind it, and so there's that. Anyway, it's one of those things where control what you can control. And if you're a Karen and you don't want other people riding e-bikes, then keep your kids away from them. It's easy as that. But then they go on and say, something must be done. They cry at local city council meetings and before driving back home in their 5,000-pound SUVs. So you can kind of see where this article is going now. It says, and it's true, some e-bikes don't follow the rules. Some ride too fast. Some are inexperienced, and those are real problems that deserve real solutions. But if you think electric bikes are the biggest threat on our roads, just wait until you hear about the slightly more common, slightly more deadly vehicle that we've been quietly tolerating the last 100 years. So he goes on to point out that car fatalities are 40,000 a year, and that is pretty accurate. And he talks about it's amazing how people get worked up or over a few dozen e-bike crashes when many of us step over sidewalk memorials where car victims are on their way to the grocery store. They've been thoroughly conditioned to accept car violence as part of the modern life. That ideas of regulating them sound unthinkable. But regulating e-bikes, now that's urgent. Now, that's probably enough of this article, so we'll get past this. But let's just take a quick look. So, electric bike sales have been steadily increasing until 2023, where they took a slight downturn, and I think they've kind of evened off from there because you have all those early adopters, and then it's a cost thing now, right? Like, you don't have one because of the cost. And these are not the e-motos. These are, the ones with pedals. So kind of keep that in mind, right? So there's about 500,000 sold per year, give or take. And if you look at the U.S. population, right, and that is, where is it? That is 347,374,817 people as of 2025, steadily increasing. And so we're talking about less than 0.2%, right? Less than 0.2% of the U.S. population purchases an e-bike every year. Not 2%, 0.2, not less than 0.2%. 0.2%. I want to get that very clear. It's not 2%. It's less than 0.2%. Okay. I just wanted to make that very clear for people that with numbers. So, e-bike fatalities. We're looking at a steady increase. It started out when the e-bikes came on the scene. 2018 there were 6, 2019 there were 6, 2020 there was 18, 2021 we went to 32, 22, 42. I'm expecting 23 to probably be around 55. 2024 probably 70 if we're extrapolating those numbers a little bit. So we're talking about 70 deaths a year on e-bikes. Okay, 70 deaths. Now let's look at automobile deaths. In 2025, we had, or 2024, sorry, because we're still in 2025, 44,680 automobile deaths. 75-ish e-bikes. 44,680 auto deaths. Now, you can see where the article was going with this about the disparity, right? But let's take a little bit closer look. This article says that in 2024, drivers struck and killed 7,148 pedestrians in the United States. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration estimated that 40,000 people overall died in traffic crashes last year. So about what we pointed out, 40,000 people die in automobile crashes, but 7,000 people are hit by drivers and killed. 70 e-bike crashes, 75 e-bike crashes. 7,148 of them were killed by cars. Pedestrians were killed by cars. Now, if we go back to the article, and you can kind of, tell where they're going. And this guy talks about regulating cars and blah, but I don't want to get into that. I just think the point of his article is pointing out that concentrating on e-bikes doesn't make a lot of sense. It's a hot button topic because there's a lot of Karens in the world and those who scream out and complain about e-bikes and stuff. So, but let's take another look at this, right? We have Johns Hopkins University has this article, Reliable Mass Transit and America's Public Health. And they talk about missed doctor's appointments, school tardiness, air pollution. So our transit, our national transit is in a lot of trouble. It just is. There was even an article about locally about a Tucson transit, how their projects to modernize are way over time and way over budget, and there's now a shortfall and it doesn't look like they're going to get it done. But something's got to break, right? Because unreliable mass transit and America's public health, that's what this article is from Johns Hopkins. The e-bikes are a solution, but they're not an overall solution. And right now, it's kind of the wild west out there with e-bikes. And that's a bigger concern with this whole thing is if there's no regulation, right, then it's just kind of out of control. But regulating and picking on e-bikes, that's a whole nother thing. And there's got to be a break-even point, right? And because I don't think you can regulate cars any more than they already are for a whole bunch of reasons. But there's got to be a way to narrow down the 7,000 pedestrians killed by automobiles every year. There has to be a solution for mass transit, especially inside of cities and stuff. And that solution is partially, I think, the e-bicycles, not the e-motos, but the e-bicycles. I want to make sure that still stays very clear. But here's my thing, is banning e-bikes aren't the answer. Regulating their speed, about how fast they go, and categorizing these e-bikes is not the answer, because people are you're just going to make criminals out of nothing for no reason at all, basically, is what that's going to be. So why don't we, make some kind of a licensing requirement for e-bikes? So from 12 to 16, if your parents want you to ride an e-bike on the street, then you have to take a safety class. And if those e-bikes go over a certain miles per hour, your parents have to register that one-time registration, so they can know that that bike is on the road. It can be tracked about who owns that bike in case of like a hit and run or something like that. Make it a requirement to have some kind of a horn or a bell or something, because it's so quiet that nobody hears it or whatever. And then you have some training for younger riders, in between 12 and 16, if you want them to ride an e-bike. That's the safety part. Make anything that goes over a certain miles per hour, you have to wear a helmet if you're under, 18 or 16 or whatever. And then you have some regulation, some requirements, but in the end, you're not just going with all out bans, and you're not just going with this categorization thing, because I think that's just silly. And you get some give and take and some compromise, because I don't think e-bikes are going anywhere. And I think that you trying to ban them or regulate them is a stupid idea, because all you're going to do is just make criminals out of young kids or out of regular folks just trying to commute around. And that's just asinine. But I thought this article was very interesting. I would like to know where you guys stand. Should they just ban e-bikes? Should they get some kind of modern rules for them? Or should they continue with the mass lawmaking that legislators are doing within the cities, which I think is kind of silly? And I will put these articles in the description so you can read them for yourself and see kind of where they're coming from. But I just thought it was very interesting, that because I live in a place where I deal with regular bicycle people with their spandex shirts and their spandex pants, and they take up the whole flipping road, and nobody seems to make them obey the laws. But if it's an e-bike, oh my God, we have to go and make them obey all the laws, right? Like, those guys on them racing bicycles go just as fast as the dang e-bikes, and they don't obey the laws, but nobody seems to care about that, right? And is it because that these are younger riders that sometimes do things they shouldn't and tear up a grass field or ride them where they shouldn't or whatever? Sure, maybe. But let's start doing these equally, right? Because if you can ride a regular bicycle at 30 miles an hour, and I got an e-bike that goes over 15 miles an hour, why would you harass me when the other guy's going just as fast, right? And they're the ones that are taking up they got 4 across in a 2-lane road. You can't get around them. They're not in the little bike lane they got. Half of the roads around where I live, because I live out in the desert, don't even have those. So they're just riding out the road, backing up traffic, and they don't care, right? But if they get hit because somebody's trying to pass, then, oh my God, it's a big old amount. It's like a big old thing. So what do we do? because we have to modernize, right? We have to have some relief for mass transit. People have to be able to get around where mass transit doesn't go. Is e-bikes the answer? Maybe, maybe not. But I want to know what you think. What do you think about this article? What do you think about this video? Let me know in the description. And if you are this far in this video, make sure you like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. But with that, we are out of here. Until next time. Much love all.